Welcome to Femmes de Bourgogne Part 2. In this 90-minute seminar, we dive into the history and stories of true powerhouse women changing the face of Burgundy today. We are lucky enough to listen to the stories and reflections of 5 women whose passion for Burgundy is undying, steadfast, modern, and personal. There will be 60 minutes of discussion and 30 minutes available for Q&A. You can support Femmes du Vin and donate at any time, with all proceeds going to the Femmes du Vin Scholarship Fund at www.femmesduvin.org. You can also post on social media and use the hashtags and handles that are currently up on the screen. I'm Angela Aiello, also known as Super Wine Girl. I'm a Canadian journalist, educator, and influencer in the world of wine, spirits, and culinary. I feel honored to moderate this panel of brilliant women. If you're watching this, you're likely a big fan of Burgundy wine. You might be early in your wine journey, a sommelier, or even a wine enthusiast. Either way, you've recognized the magic of this and the heart of this small yet most renowned and adored wine region. Femmes de Bourgogne is about change and passion. The stories and perspectives heard in this seminar will educate you about the changing world of wine. It will inspire you to be thankful for those who have trailblazed before you and get you excited about the future of females in the world of wine. Thank you to the Gibson Family Group for making this seminar possible. Now, let's introduce our amazing panelists for today's topic. Lesle Gibson is the founder of the Gibson Family Group, the first female-focused wine import agency in North America, and the highlight of her career. She earned her sommelier diploma in 1996 and was one of the first women in Toronto to earn her PIN. She is one of the city's most renowned hosts, entrepreneurs, and sommeliers. Her dedication and attention to detail has made her a legend. Her career spans over 20 years, and she has successfully opened and owned 6 restaurants, hotspots actually, in both LA and Toronto, curating every wine list with enthusiasm and intent. She was one of, if not the first wine bar in Toronto to begin offering flights of wine and really helped start the wine culture amongst sommeliers in the restaurant scene in Toronto. Her restaurant philosophy was built on a wine experience first model. And even though Lesle has served the rich and the famous, she remains down to earth and approachable. A longtime promoter of female talent, she believes every wine has a story and there needs to be more females rising up in what has traditionally been a big boys club. She believes that all roads lead to Burgundy, and her current wine list at the Gibson Family Group speaks to that, having a large percentage of Burgundy on the list, all of which she has handpicked. Determined to bring Burgundy to as many people as possible, Lesle loves to introduce her clients to the people behind the wines, and she is thrilled to have these 3 special women featured in the seminar as part of her wine family. Welcome to the discussion, Lesle Gibson.
Thanks, Angela. And I wanted to thank the fantastic women in Seminar 1. They were truly amazing.
It was a great seminar. Next up, everybody meet Marie-Antoinette de Szczypiorski. Founder of Wine Culture TV and ambassador of Wine Growers, Marie-Antoinette has independently worked with the Burgundy wine industry for more than 10 years. Acquiring her experience as a buyer of wines for a group of collectors and an organizer of high-end wine tourism in France and Italy, she is an expert taster for the Bettane+Desseauve Guide and is an educator for l'École des Vins de Bourgogne, amongst other things. This passionate, driven woman is making a statement, and we are thrilled to have her join us. Marie-Antoinette, thank you for joining us from Burgundy.
Nice to be with you tonight.
Yes, you're spending your evening with us because of the time change. It's about 5 hours. You guys are 5 hours ahead now, right?
Yes. Only 5 and not 6.
Welcome, Marie-Antoinette.
Thank you.
Next up, let's meet Lauriane André. In 2009, when Michelle and Francois André needed a new winemaker, they turned to their daughter-in-law, Lauriane. At the age of 29, she left her job in human resources, completed courses in viticulture, and became the winemaker at Domaine Francois André, completely shifting her career. This mother of 3 also applied for total organic certification for her vineyards, all while perfecting her winery making skills. Spanning over the Côte de Beaune and the famous Corton Hill, each village, Premier Cru, and Grand Cru vineyard produces exceptional juice. This talented winemaker adds her passion for the vine and her love for the grape in every glass she creates, becoming a rising star to watch. We are excited to have Lauriane André of Domaine Francois André as panelist for Femmes du Vin Harvest Seminars, joining us from Beaune. Lauriane, welcome.
Thank you, Angela. Hello, ladies. I'm very happy and so excited to be with you today.
Next up, let's say hello to Axelle Marchard de Gramont. This beautiful, fierce woman is the force behind her vines in Nuits-Saint-Georges and Vosne-Romanée. Taking over the family domain from her father in 2004, the quality of the wines and the reputation of the domain have increased exponentially from year to year. Not originally planning to be a winemaker, Axelle has the rare perspective of both an insider and an outsider of Burgundy. After 15 years away, she returned to the Côte d'Or, fully embracing the life of a vigneron, learning each vineyard and vine by heart and dedicating herself to making exceptional Burgundy wines. From her Aligoté and Bourgogne Rouge to her single vineyard Nuits-Saint-Georges and Vosne-Romanée, she represents another side of the Côte de Nuits. Soft, vivid, and bold, just like the woman herself. Certified organic with minimal intervention in the cellar, Axelle's passionate approach to viticulture and winemaking has made her a trailblazer in Burgundy. Axelle Marchard de Gramont of Bertrand and Axelle Marchard de Gramont, thank you for being with us today from Nuits-Saint-Georges.
Hello, girls. So I'm very happy to join you tonight for this wine seminar. Very happy to spend my Monday evening with you, actually. It's great.
Drinking fabulous wines. It's a wonderful way to spend a Monday. Lastly, let's meet Gaëtane Carré of Domaine Carré. Taking the reins of this family domain, this vibrant, strong woman is a force to be reckoned with. Together with her brother, Marshall, Gaëtane runs the family estate of 13 hectares spread over 13 appellations. Nestled in the Haute Côte du Beaune, this family domain was created in 1975 by patriarch Denis Carré, and for many years remained under the radar while their reputation consistently rose. Largely due to their careful work in the vineyard, the Carrés achieved the best quality possible with a sensible approach to winemaking, producing accessible wines with fresh, clean profiles. Gaëtane and Marshall are thoughtful, energetic, and smart, understanding that wine is made to be drunk and enjoyed. They focus on making wines that give pleasure when young with the potential to age gracefully. This perfect dichotomy of what Burgundy should be. These two siblings produce some of the best wines around, and their lush Pinot of Saint-Romain and Pommard to their beautiful shards of Auxey-Duras and Meursault. We are excited to have Gaëtane Carré of Domaine Carré as a panelist for the Femmes du Vin Harvest Seminar. Welcome, Gaëtane.
Hello, everybody. Hello from Burgundy. Happy to be there.
This is such an exciting time, ladies. Thank you so much. I know we just finished up a seminar where 3 of your wines were opened and tasted by many of the people who have received the Gibson Family Group 3-pack today. So thank you very much. I know my bottles are open and I have a couple glasses here. So I'm excited to dive into this next part of the seminar with you. To start our seminar off, I think it's important to have a quick introduction on Burgundy 101 and where our ladies are from. Marie-Antoinette, I feel like you're going to guide us through a little bit of a map situation and some history on Burgundy, and we're looking forward to having you give that to us. So thank you very much.
Yes, and I will show you some general reminders about Burgundy, and I share my screen. I hope it will work. Just some reminds about, you can see the map, and Burgundy is about 230 kilometers north to south, and with 5 different sub-regions. And you have on the northern part, you have Chablis and Grand Auxerrois, and very popular for the white wine, of course. And you go down, you have a small sub-region with the Châtillonnais, and we never drink wine from a label of Châtillonnais because the grapes are used for the Crémant de Bourgogne. On the northern part, you have Côte de Nuits, and the south of Dijon to Corgoloin, south of Corgoloin. It's a very small village between Nuits-Saint-Georges and Beaune. And this is, the Côte de Nuits is popular for the Grand Cru red. In the south, you have Côte de Beaune, from Ladois-Sérigny to the Marange vineyards, the southern part of Côte de Beaune. Côte de Beaune, of course, has only one Grand Cru red, and the rest of the Grand Cru are popular, are the whites, and with the Montrachet and Puligny and Chassagne. And the southern part, you have the Côte Chalonnaise with 5 different appellations. And with the specific appellation from Bouzeron, and who produce the Aligoté. And at the end, you have the Mâconnais, and most popular for the white. And now with the Premier Cru from Pouilly-Fuissé, and it's very new because it's in the tube. The classification will be acted by the government in December. And Burgundy is a very small region. 30,000 hectares, and even if it's very popular and famous, it's only 4% of the wine producing in France, and it's more than 4% of AOC wines in France, 3% of total French production, and only 0.5% of world wine production. What is an appellation? The AOC is a kind of certification, guarantees the characteristics of a wine in terms of terroir, where the grapes is grown, the way it is made following certain precise steps or recipes, and local savoir-faire, born from traditional methods that have been improved over time. And each wine stamped with an AOC is rigorously checked at every stage of its production. And in Burgundy, to remind you that we have 84 AOC. And for people who used before, read before some books, till two or 3 years ago, we talk about 100 AOC, but the Burgundy, the BIVB interpretation changed and to apply the rules, and we talk about only 84 classification. And you have the bottom of the pyramid, this is the regional AOC, 53%, and it's important to remind that. And the village AOC, 44 AOC. And before we talk about 4 level of classification, and now we talk about only 3 level, because the Premier Cru, it's not a 3rd level, but this is what we call an additional geographical denomination. And it's a specification of the village appellation. And we have 640 climat classified as Premier Cru, and we have 33 AOC Grand Cru. What is a terroir in Burgundy? It's a combination between natural elements, grape varieties, and know-how in a specific area. And the natural factor, we have the unique situation with a temperate continental climate, but till now, but we will talk later about that. And with normally a cold winter and warm summer, and the ideal situation for our grape varieties. The other natural factors, this is the geology. If you remember the pyramid with the different level, of course, this is general rules, but we can say that you observe the landscape, and we can say that the vineyards, who are planted in the plain or in the flat landscape, we can say that is a regional grapes, or the wines, the vineyards are planted on the upper part behind the trees. There we can, this is the haute côte, and it's also regional grapes. Village wines are generally close to the villages, and Premier Cru and Grand Cru, it's a mix in the middle of the slope, depends on which village you are. Of course, some villages have only Premier Cru, some not, and some have Grand Cru and some other not. The grape varieties, you have 51% is Chardonnay, less than 40% is Pinot Noir, and 6% of Aligoté, and less than 4% for Gamay, Sauvignon, and other grapes. And it's important to understand that Burgundy is more and more white, like my hair, and because we have more and more Chardonnay. The proportion of for the wines, you have almost 60% of white wine, 30 for red, and 11 for Crémant de Bourgogne. Because if you remember, the aligoté is included, is planted mainly for the Crémant de Bourgogne. And here we arrive to the local savoir-faire. And first, the local savoir-faire with Lauriane. And the Lauriane Winery is located in Beaune, in the town, in the city of Beaune. But the wine tasted tonight is from Savigny-les-Beaunes, is 7 kilometers from Beaune, not more. And it's in the Côte de Beaune. After we have with Gaëtane, we are the winery of Gaëtane is located in the Haute-Côte de Beaune, and you are still in the Côte de Beaune, but behind the trees. And this is in the small village of Meloisey, very, very nice village. And the wine we tasted tonight, this is the Pommard, and also in Côte de Beaune. And the last one, it's Axelle Marchard de Gramont, and Axelle is located in Côte de Nuit. And the winery is also like Gaëtane, sorry, but it's not in the Haute-Côte de Beaune, but it's in the Haute-Côte de Nuit, behind the trees, behind the côte. And this is the small village of Curtil-Vergy. And the wine we tasted tonight is in Nuit Saint-Georges, in Côte de Nuit. And that's it.
No, thank you so much. I'm very much looking forward to hearing from our winemakers and winery owners tonight. So I know in the previous seminar, thank you so much, Marie-Antoinette. I'm really glad that the PowerPoint worked for us. That was also great. I would really love to hear from Lauriane, Axelle, Gaëtane. I know that we have tasted your wines, and maybe, I know we're going to get into the wines maybe a little bit more. This is the second question I want to ask each of us, bring us all up to speed on our panels. But if all of us could talk about how your different career paths have led you to wine. I know every one of you has a very astonishing story. So Lauriane, why don't we start with your story to bring us up to speed?
Thank you, Angela. The story of the estate began in 1983. In fact, my father-in-law, who was accountant, drank a glass of Savigny-les-Beaunes Premier Cru White to one of his customers, and he totally fell in love with this terroir. And he said, if one day he will have the opportunity to buy a vineyard of this terroir, he would do it. And he got the opportunity in 1983. And as my parents-in-law were not wine growers and winemakers, they gave the management of the estate to one of their friends, who was Sylvain Pittiot. Perhaps you know him because he recently ended his career at the famous Clotard in Côte de Nuit. And when Sylvain Pittiot left the estate, Comte Senard and his daughter take over the management of the estate, and my parents-in-law had three sons: Frédéric, the first one who is notary, Rodolphe, the second one who is working as a director in the sales sector, and my husband, the best one, Thierry, the first one who is accountant as his father. And my parents-in-law thought that Rodolphe, the second one, would one day take over the management of the estate. But in 2009, he said to them, I love the Burgundy wines, but it's not my goal to work in the wine industry. My in-laws asked me, Lauriane, would you like to take over the management of the estate? And that's why I'm here. I was very, very surprised about the proposition because I had studied law and I was a human resources director in a transport firm. So there was a huge gap between the law and the wines. But I got married with a Burgundy man, and I also got married with Burgundy wines. So after 3 months of thinking, I said to my in-laws, the challenge is interested me, but I need, of course, training and instruction. So I made a training during 1 year to learn wine growing methods and winemaking process. And in 2009, I took over the management of the estate with Jérôme Després, who was the winemaker of another estate in Burgundy. So 2009 is also an important date because we changed our wine growing methods into organic wine. For us, organic wine growing methods was necessary to improve the quality of the wines. In fact, we didn't use chemical products. We put life again the soil. We revived the soil and the terroir to promote insect and worms activity to aerate the soil so that the roots of the vineyards are going deeper to find the terroir. And 2009 is also an important date because we changed the name of the estate. Now it's Françoise André, the name of my mother-in-law. It's a kind of tribute to her, and also because she's the link between all the actors who participate in this adventure. So today, the estate covers 11 hectares of vineyard in the Côte de Beaune, from Pommard to the Hill of Corton. And we are only working in grape estates because for us, it's very important to control all the process of the wines from the scratch to the commercial part.
No, that's a fabulous story. I think there are many women who are listening today that think, you know, when is a good time to change your career? And I think we're going to get into this a little bit more, but basically any time is a good time to change your career when you're passionate about where you're changing into. So thank you very much for that story. Axelle, I know you have a very interesting story. Why don't you share your wine journey with us?
Okay, so my father, Bertrand Marchard de Gramont, I try to pronounce it very well because I know it's not easy for you. So Bertrand, my father created his estate in 1983 after he got separated from his brothers. He used to work in a biggest family domain. And it never crossed his mind that one day one of his daughters would join him to work on the estate. But actually, my younger sister had this plan. She studied viticulture, but then she changed her path. She decided not to join my father. And when she told me that she would not join him, I was living in Paris because I left Burgundy when I was 19, 20. And so when my sister told me she would change her mind, and I talked to my husband, and I said, maybe we should go. And he said, I mean, we took a decision to come back to Burgundy very quickly. Like in a few weeks, we made that decision. So in 2004, I came back to Burgundy after 15 years in Paris with a main goal, which was to turn the estate organic. Like Lauriane, I had to go through training first because I had no idea about the production itself. I mean, I was already involved in the family estate, selling the wines in Paris, but I needed to train. So I spent 1 year at the viticulture school in Bourgogne, and then right away I joined the estate, and I started to work. I spent, I would say, 10 years, and entirely dedicated to work in the vineyards because I had to, because I had a quite romantic view of this profession. And then I would say little by little, my father let me take decisions. And I would say that today, even if it's still a common work with my father, I think I reached almost my goal of doing what I want. Well, that's it.
That's lovely. I mean, to be able to wake up every day and know each one of your vines and have made that transition from sort of, Burgundy to Paris and then back home. I think there's a lot of people that go through that journey of coming back home in a way. And I know in Europe too, I think we're going to get into this a little bit more, but this idea of sort of young people coming back to family estates is something that I think is a wonderful thing to help revive the European wine economy. So thank you for your journey, Axelle, and for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gaëtane, we'd love to hear from you. I love your yellow background, and I've seen your mic, and I feel like we're all looking forward to hearing your story. So share with us your journey.
I'm not a singer, okay? I'm just using this micro. I have a career before for 10 years as a singer. No, that's not true at all. My parents started the estate 45 years ago, and I carry on with my brother for 12 years now. They started from zero, having no name, no vineyards, no house, no cellar, absolutely nothing. So it's much easier for us now because we both came back at the same time, but it's much easier for us to carry on because at least we have a name, a house, and someone behind us, which makes life much easier. Of course, I did all my studies in wine, which is not really easy. And I ended up working for a wine importer in England. My aim was to be able to speak in English and to sell wine in English, which I'm supposed to do tonight. And so my brother went on the technical studies and I did more business studies, but we all do everything on the Domaine. So we both carry on together for 12 years now. And we work bio, but without any certification yet, because it's only 5 years ago, so which is quite new for us. But we are very, very happy about that. And yeah, that's all. I don't have any career before. I'm the youngest girl around this table, so I can't say I have a career before because I'm working here for 12 years and I just went in England before. So I did my WSET. I'm not a master of wine. I stopped before my diploma, which was already a good point. And that's it, really.
That's amazing. I think, we all have different journeys and careers have led us into different paths. And I think that is the glory of this panelist of amazing women right now is hearing all these stories. Marie-Antoinette, tell us about your journey to wine.
I grew in a farm in the south part of Burgundy. And my parents, after retraining from the medicine to agriculture in 1970, grown animals and goats and vineyard, and but for their own consumption. And the grape is not allowed now. And I was not at all ready to work in the goat élevage and or vineyards. And I went to university to study law. And at the end of my law studies, I tried to go in Bonn for a master in international trading of wine. But in 1990s, it was reserved to men or especially to sons of parents who were already involved in the industry. And I decided the life sent me to work for the government and in the environment section. And while I was playing French hunting horn, especially at the Château du Clos de Vougeot, I met a lot of wine producers, and retraining to wine became a dream. And 13 years ago, I changed completely my life and to study wine and go back to the university and especially talk a better English. And it was, I returned to a wine school in Bonn, and it was like a spirit revelation. And the rest of the story, Angela, you have already described it. And I worked in the wine industry as a wine buyer and a wine writer for the big popular book on the Bettane+Desseauve and many other things. But I changed completely my life for the wine, for passion. And I earned more money before, but I'm really happy now.
I love your spiritual revelation. Is that you called it a wine? Yeah, wine, it becomes sort of the spiritual revelation. I think we all have moments. I was lucky enough to actually be at Clos Vougeot for one of those harmonious experiences, and I cried. It was one of those moments where it is everything you can imagine a spiritual experience to be. So what an amazing story. I know your journey in Burgundy has been an interesting one, and we're going to get into some interesting stories from each of you. Leslie, let's hear about your story. I know I did a really great introduction, but tell us something else maybe we haven't heard.
So excuse me if I'm reading this, because my over 50 brain sometimes takes the wheel, and it just keeps me focused. So my love affair with the grapes started very early on. However, I never intended to head down the road I've taken. With a degree in philosophy and a few years in the advertising world in London, I somehow found my way home to Toronto and fell in love with the restaurant scene, and I was instantly smitten. My first experience from conception to delivery came 25 years ago when friends of mine were opening their first place. It was such a family environment, a good friends, hard work, great food and wine. Some of you may know it, but Tironi created magic and still does all these years later. After a few years there, I was asked to help at one of the first wine bars called Sotto Voce, which was up on College Street in Toronto. It was discreetly cool back then in the mid-90s, which I'm dating myself. I love the concept of the bar and had so much fun learning about the wines. I decided to get my Somm in 96, and then my wine life was created from there. So I opened my first restaurant in 98, just down the street, called Teatro, that focused on the wine experience first. From there came Shakuti in 2002, which was the first of its kind in the city, with new Indian cuisine, a killer wine list, and it became one of Canada's top 3 restaurants at the time. Then I headed to LA a few years later, opening 3 more hotspots before heading home to open my last baby. It was a restaurant called Grace that I still hold very close to my heart. I curated every list. I lived at every restaurant and managed every experience. After Grace sold in a few years with my event company and a few wine agencies, Gibson Family Group was born, the accumulation of all my hard work during those years. I believe whether you're a server, sommelier, restaurateur, an agent, you're an advocate of the winemaker and have the wonderful responsibility of representing their wines while introducing the people behind them. It's a job that should be taken seriously with a passion, and I love it. And I'm honored to represent the 3 talented women that we see here today.
I love that. I think it's also cool to know that your Grace is, well, it was obviously where it was on College Street now. It's replaced by Dilo. So there's some good energy there. I feel like everybody really loves that restaurant over there as well.
I lived on that street for most of my adult life. So yeah. It's great.
Little Italy, it's a good place to lots of food, lots of wine. I mean, it's a great place to be inspired through so many chapters of your career. This must be an exciting time for you, starting the Gibson Family Group, which was started in, it was an idea last year and then fully launched in October. And what a way to start a business, just launching in a pandemic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy. Thank you, ladies, for sharing your story. I know we all have a glass of wine in front of us. So next up on our list is, we just came out of a seminar where we had all of your wines technically broken down. There were some of the ladies had some, guesses as to where the wines were from. They were revealed at the end. Now, I'd love to hear each one of the winemakers talk about their wine from their own perspective. So Lauriane, why don't you start us off with your wine?
So let's talk about the Savigny-les-Beaunes Premier Cru Les Vergelès Red 2017. The vineyard of Savigny-les-Beaunes Premier Cru Les Vergelès is 50 years old and is planted on hillsides direction Pernan-Vergelès. The soil of this vineyard is clay limestone and the exposition is east. That is to say that the vineyards benefits of the sun all day long. So thanks to that condition, during harvest time, the grapes are very concentrated. So the harvest is done manually with a meticulous cluster selection. On that wine, distemming is extensive. And during the winemaking process, the daily tasting of the wine will define the type of work of what we have to do. But mostly we proceed to soft and gentle pumping to express the terroir finest characteristic. We renew 30% of barrels each year. It's a voluntary, moderate renewal to let the terroir express itself. The aging lasts from 12 to 18 months. But let's go back to the wine. For both color, 2017 was generous and good to very good quality, and the grapes were exceptionally healthy. Everyone of the Côte d'Or was smiling this year because the vintage before 2016 we had a lot of frost and we lost unfortunately a lot of our production. So the wine, the color is ruby, bright and limpid. The nose is fruity. You've got black and red fruits, berries, and flowers. The attack is straightforward. The middle palate is balanced. You've got juicy fruit and spicy nuts in the mouth. The tannins are very velvety and the finish is persistent. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much. I'm sure 2017, we're all going to talk about 2017. It was a very generous year because 2016 was a challenge. And so Mother Nature gave you something to smile about for this vintage. So I'm very grateful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Gaëtane, let's hear about your Pommard.
Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
We move now on to Pommard Premier Cru Les Charmeaux. That's okay. Thank you, Angela. And this is the first vineyard Premier Cru that my parents bought when they created the estate. So it's very important for us. It's a very strong and powerful wine. This is what you can expect from a Pommard anyway. This is very bright, easy drinking. The vineyard is quite old. It's 55 years old. It's well situated, facing southeast. And of course, because the vineyard is very old, it's producing very small grapes. We do the harvest by hand, of course. On the Domaine, we produce 1/3 of white and 2/3 of reds. So we have most of our vineyards in Pommard, village and smaller Premier Cru. So the wine is strong and powerful, but still very elegant. It is strong, but not massive. Tannins are here, but they are not aggressive. It's still very elegant now. It's very long, very deep. I used to keep saying that you can drink a glass of Pommard, and even if the wine is already in your body, but the Pommard is still in your mouth. It's very long and very deep. You can speak for a minute after the wine is still there, which is absolutely fantastic with Pommard. That's really long, really deep. Tannins are not aggressive, and there is a nice energy. And I love the freshness of the 2017. Like Lauriane said before, 17 is really easy drinking. It's a lovely vintage, and of course, much happier for us after 16. But I love the 17 because it's very open on the nose, easy drinking, and ready to drink for Christmas or even before, who knows. So it's we put maximum 25% of the oak. Like Lauriane, we all do the 100% is all destemmed, all the grapes are destemmed, and the extraction is quite gentle. So that's all we can say about Pommard. Just drink it, enjoy wine, and drink some every single day. A little glass, some points, but it's really easy drinking, really. And you don't need to match with any food. You can drink that by itself. It works.
I was gonna ask about a food pairing, but I feel like charcuterie is just one of the perfect items to go with this if you happen to be, if it's lunch in Canada or afternoon in Canada and North America, and even over the course of dinner time with everyone over in France and in Europe. I feel like this also has obviously some really wonderful food pairings as we sort of move into cooler weathers over here. There's so many wonderful dishes that we can pair with these wines. So thank you. I'm wondering what I'm going to be cooking up tonight. Axelle, let's hear about Nuits Saint-Georges.
Okay, so we are tasting now Nuits Saint-Georges Les Hauts-Prulliers 2017. So Les Hauts-Prulliers, it's located on the south part of the Nuits Saint-Georges appellation. And Les Hauts-Prulliers, it is just above the Prullier Premier Cru. So the vines here, they were planted in 1964. It is facing southeast. It is a very poor soil. I would mean the mother rock is very close to the surface. That's what it means. It explains a lot about the yield, which is always very low, coming from those vines. It is a wine which is organic. I always insist on that, especially in this particular plot we have, which is quite steep. And what can I say? The proportion of new oak is 20-25%. I would say 25% in 2017. And it has been aged in barrels during 18 months. So now let's come to the tasting. So about the color, as I would say a lot of 2017 in Burgundy, the color is bright and quite deep coming from the low yield. The nose is delicate with a dominant of black fruits, like blackcurrant or blueberries. And we can feel also spices. It is spicy. Now let's come to the tasting itself. So the mouth has pleasant tannins, silky, even if we can feel that there's some structure in that wine. But it has something crunchy on the palate. I think it gives a lot of energy to the wine. After you had the wine in your mouth, I would say it's quite persistent, which tells us that, to me, it is a wine which has a long aging potential, but in that specific vintage, I would say that the wine is already enjoyable. Maybe it needs to be opened a little before you pour the wine into the glass. Maybe you need to put the wine in a carafe, but it is a wine you can already enjoy. Voilà.
I loved your crunchy term. I think that was, if someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was used in the first seminar. Someone described it as crunchy and fruity. And so I feel like it's always nice when a winemaker's tasting notes align with someone who's tasting the wine completely blind. That's always, a home run, I would assume.
Yes, I would add that I'm very happy to hear that, because Nuits Saint-Georges has a reputation to be an appellation which is about, tannic wines, a little austere, sometimes a little, I would not say neglected, but because it's close to Vosne Romanée, people always think that Vosne Romanée, it's so silky, and Nuits Saint-Georges, which is a little more powerful, people have in mind it's going to be a wine that need time. And so hearing that my wine is crunchy and, energetic, and that you can enjoy it right now, makes me very happy.
Oh, that's really wonderful. That's so nice to hear. Well, cheers, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I think it's wonderful for us all to be able to try these wines, and for everyone in Ontario to be able to try these wines. And if it's not these exact wines, making sure that you hop into Burgundy and discover all the different 84 appellations, right, Marie-Antoinette?
Yes. And I just would like to add a small precision about the 3 wines. Because normally in Burgundy, we test regional first, village after, Premier Cru and Grand Cru, like the pyramid. And here we decided to test the 2 Premier Cru first and the village at the end. And it's important to understand, of course, the pyramid is important, but the location and the terroir is important. And even if it's Pommard and Savigny are Premier Cru, the village from Axelle, from Nuits Saint-Georges, could be could have more structure and put the same level and the same power as a Premier Cru. And it's important to understand that at this wine tasting. And I agree with Axelle, and often the reputation of Nuits Saint-Georges wines are a bit full-bodied, but keep in the mind that Nuits Saint-Georges, they have often more red fruits and red berries, and they need a bit of time, but it's very nice appellation. And Pommard as well is the same characteristic. Often Pommard is not a wine very easy to drink if it's when it's young, but more and more, and it's fresh and easy to drink young. And Savigny, but this is the good balance between the two. And it's in the middle, but it's the good balance between the two. Okay.
Well, I also know that there's a lot happening in Burgundy right now. I feel the world of wine is changing, and there's a lot happening. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit about how climate change is affecting and the effects of Burgundy. What other sort of changes are happening in specific to Burgundy right now?
Yes. And I think like everywhere, but what we can observe, and first on the natural and climatic factors. And if you remember in my presentation, I talk about continental climates. And here we can say that the global warming has an important impact from a row of few years on Burgundy vineyards. And if we had till 15, 20 years ago, 4 different seasons, and now we can talk about 2 seasons, winter and summer. And winter is warmer with a lot of rain, but often not enough. And normally the rain is an average of 700 millimeters to 800 millimeters per year along the year. But more and more, we have 300 millimeters January to April, and almost nothing till October. And spring is really dangerous now, more and more, because warm days start in February or March, and nature wakes up too early. And April and May are now very sensitive to the frost. 2016 with like 2016 with the Black Frost, and these events were very rare in the past, but now every year is risky. Summer is more and more dry with drought, and that brings hydric stress for the vines. And the harvest starts earlier and earlier. This year, they started the 12th of August for the Crémant grapes, and around the 20th of August for the still wines, means 3 weeks in advance compared to a normal year. And of course, these changes means that the growers are thinking about new practices to lead the vineyards, and to choose the right routes to avoid hydric stress and find the best balance to cultivate the soil, to maintain water enough for summer. And the impact on the quality of the wines is at that time very positive. The areas where the grapes ripened later observes a better quality, especially in the Haute Côte de Nuit or Haute Côte de Beaune, for example, and due to best maturity, especially for Pinot. But it's necessary to keep the acidity and freshness, and I think this is the most important challenge now. And for Chardonnay, to decide of the right day to pick it is more and more difficult. And we can see winemakers that acidify the juice during the vinification. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And we can see as well a social evolution. And the wine economy in Burgundy is 45,200 jobs in Burgundy. These figures includes Jura area. But an important point is the difficulties to find employees to work manually in the vineyards, especially with 6 different jobs. For example, tractors, drivers, and the wine industry, it demands qualification, and the wine industry is working at that point, cellarman, administrative employees, and vineyard workers, and it's very difficult to find people. And like in the other region, an important point has to be noticed is the difficulty to find people to pick the grapes, especially from the last 5 years. And harvests were an important part of the atmosphere in the area, but the European regulation and the rules are more and more strict and sometimes exaggerated. And it's why more and more wineries don't want anymore to offer room and board to the pickers. And it's why more and more wineries call a service provider who bring pickers from different countries with mainly the new migrants. And often there is the communication between the producers and pickers is more and more difficult, because they don't speak French, they don't speak English. And it's why I said the future for the harvest machine is guaranteed. Especially not in the Grand Cru, of course, but no rules about that. It's not like in Alsace. And but despite these difficulties, Burgundy is, of course, a welcome region for an attractive region for the international internship, and you are welcome to do the harvest. And the third point important is the market evolution. The sales in Burgundy represent 205 million of bottles a year. And till to last year, 2019, 55% of the wine sold to export. But with the COVID, of course, the volume is minus 5% and 12% in value. But despite the global context, Burgundy is resistant compared to other regions, and certainly because of its notoriety and because of its small and the demand is important. And of course, it impacts the prices. And on the wines, many people cannot afford to buy Burgundy wines because of its price, but it's necessary to not forget that the 53% of our wines are classified as regional wines and affordable. If you remember the pyramid, and the bottom part, the green part, is regional wines, and never more than 20 euros. I don't know the translation in the last, but not more. This is the maximum. And another fact who impacts the prices is the price of the land. And the evolution of the price of the land is really, really important. And it's a very important question, because the price of the transactions on the land increased by 40%, especially in Côte d'Or, and in the last 10 years. And it's why it's more and more difficult for the Domaine to transmit the properties to the descendants. And of course, it has an impact on the prices. And because we have rules, and the owners of land had to pay huge tax to transmit the properties. And it's the main changes I noticed.
I mean, these are very interesting because you're looking at climate change, and then you have social change, then you have the winery change, the financials all around all of those. And I mean, I don't think we've gotten into this yet, but being a female in Burgundy, I think this is very exciting. I know in the last 20 years, the wine industry has changed so much, and we've seen this rise of the female, and this is a very exciting time. But historically, there have been ways of referring to women, and we've all had experiences as women in this industry. Maybe we can have a quick discussion around being a woman in this industry, if you've had any experiences that you'd like to share with the group. Leslie, have you had any experiences that you'd like to share?
I haven't been in the industry this long without some, but from a hospitality side of things, there are many barriers, as you can imagine. For me, it was from being the only female in my class to the glaze over during wine tastings, the discussions and the attitude of the service industry back then towards women in wine, and it wasn't easy. We've come a long way, but even now, I mean, one of the most famous Burgundy wine clubs excludes women, at least in the Toronto chapter, even today. So we've climbed many mountains, but I feel like there's still a ways to go.
Exactly. I feel like you were probably one of the only female somms in the class in 1996.
I was.
How many of you? Yeah, there were.
Yeah, at least in my class, it was the only one. It was the only one. But
and that has its own challenges too. I mean, you were trailblazing at a time when there weren't a lot of women in the industry at all in the 90s for sommeliers.
I just don't think we were encouraged as much, although we can always say that usually the female palate is one of the better palates, and but even then, I'm sure these ladies also can attest to all of that from where they were growing up and dealing with things.
Anyone else have a story they'd like to share about being a female in the business?
Yes, I would say that, well, because I'm among the oldest, among the three, we are joining the seminar tonight. I'm the oldest, and I would say when I joined my father to work with him, I was still young, so to speak, and maybe he was the first man I had to face and argue with being in this wine world. And at the end, I mean, is it specific to wine, or is it specific to life and our society? I agree with you when you say that there are more and more women and we're more and more accepted, but I think there's still a lot of work to do. And in a way, I would say that we need men in our profession, because it's still, even if we have a lot of good material now, I mean, good machines, and we can be, I mean, there were a lot of progress regarding how to work in the vineyards. We still need the strength of men, but I think we just have to share the work and be able to work together. And I'm not a feminist. I've always been into the state of mind of being accepted as a woman and not being judged because I was a woman. And but I'm still very often in situations where people want me to be in the position of being the one selling the wines. And this is not what I'm interested in first. I mean, my profession was to work in the vineyards, to work in the winery, and to make wine. So to resume, yes, I didn't tell about a specific story. I just told you my how I feel today. I feel stronger, maybe because I'm older, but I think we can, add a little piece of the story of wine altogether, men and women, and we just have to be confident and to love what we do. This is the most important.
I believe I remember a story you telling me about coming to Toronto and being very surprised with the amount of women that were in the business in Canada, and that was really eye-opening for you.
Oh yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was. It made me so happy. All those young I met. I had no idea. It was my first time in Toronto, and before that, I was not really used to travel. And in France, among the sommelier, except some very famous sommelier, I think it's still very, very masculine. And yes, I was surprised and I was happy because they were, those young women so enthusiastic and so curious, asking so many details about the process of making wines. And it was really sharing my profession with, there was no barrier or, a man, expecting you not to be able to answer to this or that question. It was really a pleasant experience, and I'm looking forward to having more experience like this.
Thank you so much. We're excited to have you back in Toronto. Marie-Antoinette, do you have any sort of stories about what's from being a woman in wine? Mm-hmm.
Of course, and I agree with Axelle because I think women involved in the wine industry are more and more women in the 20 last years, but we don't have to forget that to the time when a woman was not allowed to enter in a winery during the vinification process when she had a period is not so distant, and especially in a small village where Gaëtane lives in Wales. And I remember a producer a few years ago, he said, "No women in my wine cellar," and that time is not so so old, and it's important to keep an eye. And I have a very, very recent story about a very brilliant woman. She is an enologist, and she replied to an advertise to manage a domain in Bordeaux area, and she is very brilliant, I know. And the guy who is the actual manager has to be retired next spring in 2021. And but because he didn't choose himself, the person who come after him, and she started during this harvest in September, but she stayed only 1 month, because the actual manager and his colleague, and they do everything to push her outside and to not stay, but just because it's a woman. And I think it's in Burgundy we don't have the real problem, but we have to keep an eye.
Yes, there are things that happen, and we all have to bring those stories to the table. It's about awareness, bringing awareness to these things. I mean, for a woman to not be allowed in the vineyard when she's, on her period, I mean, it seems like that to me just seems so far-fetched. I can't even, my brain is not computing, and yet it was probably not that long ago. It might even still, those theories still might be something that, are very, still happen within various different parts. So thank you for sharing that story. I know that's probably not those stories are not easy to share, but I think part of our journey here at Femmes du Vin is helping to bring those stories forward so that we can bring those ideas and sort of movements to life. Lauriane and Gaëtane, do you have, either one of you have anything that you'd like to bring to the table as a female working in the business in Burgundy?
Well, I am much younger, so thankful to all these women before. To the opposite way of Leslie, it was 50% of girls and 50% of men in my classroom. So things are in a good way of evolution. So that's a really good point. But on the opposite way, I can also say that people are still thinking me or anyone else around, you are still the daughter of or the wife of. And it's even hard sometimes to remind people that we do have a name, and even if we are the daughter of a great wine grower or the wife of a fantastic wine grower, we do still have a name. I think it's very important to remind that to people. Of course, things are changing. I am, like Axelle said before, we do need men. I work with my brother for 12 years. It's a fantastic team. I am absolutely nothing without him, and it wouldn't be anything without me. So we do need each other, definitely. And I can't carry on without him, for sure. And our parents are happy to give up some decision, to be allowed to take some decision. Exactly as Axelle said before, we do need our father. We do need our brother. It's all a question about team, and especially in Burgundy, it's a question about family. And I think it's a main point, because in any wine region, it's all about the question of family, and there's no family. And what's interesting in it, the family business, it's a family history. We do not work every day, we are passionate every day. So even if it's even harder when you're a woman, it's really worth it.
No, thank you very much. It's important to always note that every human has a name, right? We have positions, but we all have names. And I think that's where we need to move towards, is that, each individual human has a position and a name. That's very important. Lauriane, anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
I agree with Gaëtane. I think for our generation today, being a woman today in the wine industry is not the matter, but for me is a question of passion and energy.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story, ladies. I know there's, I know we've sort of entered into the Q&A time, and I did want to start off with that question. I know people are asking about what's it like being a female in Burgundy. We have had some other questions about 2020. What does the 2020 vintage look like as we enter into sort of this unknown vintage coming out of or into a pandemic, however it is that we're sort of this new social dilemma that we're in. But maybe a few of you could just highlight what 2020, what you feel 2020 is going to be able to offer from Burgundy. Who would like to start?
Okay, I go.
Yeah.
2020 is fantastic, and it's a great vintage. Colors are beautiful. We started the harvest very early, which is always a good sign. And the maturity is there. Of course, we had a very dry summer, but honestly, it's fantastic. So we need time, we need to work. It's all in a cellar now, so no rush. Take a plane whenever that would be possible and come and taste. And you are very welcome here.
I agree with Gaëtane. 2020 will be a fantastic vintage, but we need to be patient, and there are so many other vintage in big Burgundy we are ready to drink now, and I think that 2020 it's terrible with the COVID, unfortunately, but it will be a fantastic vintage in Burgundy.
Yes, I would add something, if it's possible. Can you hear me? Yes. I would add that maybe, so of course I agree with you girls, 2020 is a great vintage. It was very healthy, and it's already very well balanced, and we already enjoy tasting the wines from the barrel. But I would almost talk about maybe a trilogy. Do you say trilogy in English? Like 2018, 2019, and 2020 are, to me, have that in common, being very, I mean, it was sunny, we had no disease issues, and to me, I'm really looking forward to being able to taste those three wines in a row, and because I think they have something in common, and I'm already looking into the future, and I'm wondering what is going to be next year.
Wow. So would you say 3 great years back to back? You've been blessed.
Yes, I think they are very interesting vintages, and I think it's to me, it's definitely maybe a new era, or it's like something is happening. We talked about the climate change, and it has something to do with it. I mean, the alcohol is a little high compared to before, but because we work, I mean, everybody now is working hard in the vineyards. There was a time people were more focused on the work at the winery, and they were, barrels and technical changes into the winery. I think now we are back to being more attentive and very attentive to the work in the vineyards. And I think working that way, we are more and more accurate and being able to face that climate change. And this is why, to me, from 2018 to this vintage, 2020, there's something had changed. This is my opinion. And I tell you that very spontaneously. It's not something I was thinking about before the seminar, but because you asked about that vintage, this is what was crossing my mind.
There's changes that are happening that you're finally seeing a pattern to, maybe, is what you're suggesting, is that, you know, like Marie-Antoinette suggested, there's all these sort of climate change, historical change, social changes, and then now you're being able to see a pattern. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, I would say we those 3 spatial vintages, 3 in a row like this, I think it made us think that we definitely have to think how to change the way to work, how to be able to anticipate more and more, because, I mean, we were talking about the wines tonight, and it's always very interesting to share with you about the wines, but all the work we have to do before being able to pour our wine in a glass, this is such a huge amount of work. And with those climate changes we have, it's more, to me, it's more and more difficult, because the season is shorter and shorter, and we have to face extreme weather. We go from frost at the beginning of spring to heat in summer, and at the end we have to harvest in August. This is unbelievable. So we are in a rush, constantly in a rush. And we don't want to lose why people love Burgundy. They love Burgundy wines because the wines are delicate and well balanced, with this slight acidity, which gives some energy and elegance to the wine. So with those very sunny weathers, personally, I'm afraid to have to face, you know, wines which very high degrees, and wines which would be a little more heavy. And I'm sure that changing our way to work in the vineyards and being more and more able to anticipate, we will manage to be able to go on making wines which are enjoyable.
But I think what is very surprising with these vintages is sometimes a few years ago we could hear, okay, with the global warming, Burgundy wines, they will have the profile of Rhone Valley wines, but not at all. They are today. I tasted a large row of 2009. And what is very surprising is the acidity, and is kept in the wines. And this is the what we call the colonne vertebrale of the wine, and is really, really surprising. And another thing, what is very surprising is the vines. This plant is amazing. If you cross the côte, the Burgundy at these days, it's just fantastic. It's gold, red, and there's fantastic colors. And we could imagine in July, August, and with the very warm and very hot temperatures, we could say that just after the harvest, and the leaves could be dead and fall just after the harvest, but not at all. We had rain the three or four last weeks, and it's just wow! It's just wonderful. And I think the vineyards has energy enough and a kind of resource. I don't know the name in English, but powerful enough to keep that acidity and that freshness in our wines. And we are not ready to plant Syrah.
So just what I'm hearing from both of you is the climate change is affecting Burgundy, but it's still overly positive. Yes. There's maybe some winemaking transitions that are happening in the vineyard. Axelle's like, yes, a lot. That's happening, but nothing maybe unmanageable is maybe something that you would agree with. the most maybe unmanageable part. And we had some questions about the migrant workers, which could be a whole nother seminar actually on its own. But there was someone that just asked, was there any issues this year in 2020 with migrant workers? And is there, how did you overcome those challenges?
Yes, I think about the migrants and the difficulty to find people to work in the vineyards is that more and more the estates has to call employees providers, and the European rules, they say, okay, but if you want to host people and give a bed and food to your harvesters, you have to be on the rules, and rules for that. And at the end, what we have employees providers who bring migrants, and they don't have beds and hotels and comfortable places to be housed, and that it's the reverse of the middle, and it's a bit complicated, and of course, and I can understand a wine producer, because it's easier. You call employee provider, and you sign only one contract. But the rules are so tough and so difficult that if you want to employ 30 or 40 pickers, it's an amazing work and of administrative work, and it's easier. But the reverse of the middle is not. It's not the best. I don't know where is going for the future, but these changes are. You can see that changes from 3, 4, 5 years, not more.
Well, and the harvest in Burgundy is very short, right? I feel like you ladies were telling me it's 3 weeks. Yeah, so it's a very short sort of like stop and go type of season. So you do all that administrative work for 3 weeks and then figure it all out, and so it's a challenge to be overcome.
Yes, but it changed a lot the atmosphere, because even if it's some producer, they have to keep family workers or students or the people who come every year. But with the employees providers, is not at all the same atmosphere. And before the harvest was a kind of a party, work party, but kind of. But but now it's only work.
It's more and more regulated as well.
Yes.
So I see. Yeah. Well, ladies, this has been a riveting conversation. Your wines have been performing so well. And thank you, Marie-Antoinette, for going through and leading us through Burgundy 101 and through all these amazing cultural and social and economic changes that are happening. One last question before we sign off on our seminar that I'd love for everyone on the panel to answer. And it's, there are many women listening today to this seminar, and they have the dream of getting into the wine business. Some of them without family that have been part of the estates. It's not passed on. They don't have sort of that open door. But what advice would you have for women getting into the industry today, or maybe even a piece of advice to your younger self? Lauriane.
Ladies, listen to me, please. If someone told me 20 years ago that I become a winemaker in Burgundy, I wouldn't believe it. I had an opportunity, I took my chance, and I didn't regret it. I also could say that not being born in the wine business and then not knowing many things about wine could be a hold to work on this sector. I try to turn this weakness into a strength, and it has certainly helped me being perhaps more curious, more open-minded, to sharing experience with other winemakers, because as you know, we are more clever together. And so ladies, please take your chance and believe in yourself.
That's so special. That's so nice. Anyone else who wants to go next?
I could say that stay focused on people, part of the terroir, and I think it's important to know the technical methods and the wines, and to know the wine tastings, but never forget the people behind the winemaking. It's really, really important. And if you keep humility, you will manage to do something.
Yeah,
I love that.
I agree completely. On a hospitality side of things, or the other area, I would just say follow your path wherever it may take you, and don't be afraid of change. It's definitely hard, but as long as you acknowledge your passion, it really does pay off. So that would be my little 2 cents.
Thanks, Les. Axelle, what would you give to your younger self?
What would I say? I would say, like I said before, there's room for women and men working together in the wine world. And when you have passion, when you are not afraid to work hard, because it's hard, I mean, you can't be bored being in that profession, whatever you do, being a big sommelier, being a winemaker, being able to organize tastings. I mean, this is such a beautiful story of human beings all together sharing wine, but not wine only. It's talking about history, it's talking about geology, it's talking about food, it's an amazing world, and so if you are into this passion, you have to go on and then follow your path, like Leslie said,
and go fast. Do not wait 20 years to ask questions, and if I have to do it or not, do it now and right now. The life is so short.
Mm-hmm. Gaëtane, what would you tell everyone?
Jump into it. Act your life. Do not think about anything. I'm not going to say it's easy, because it's really hard, but even if it's hard, that's the way you feel much stronger and much happier. If it was too easy, if there's no challenge, it's not really exciting. And doing this job is a massive job. You forget about your weekends, your nights and everything, because you are into it every single minute. But it really worth it again. So go and jump into it. Definitely. You won't regret, for sure.
I love it. Embrace your curiosity too. I would say I don't have any family of mine was ever in the wine business. It just sort of was a small bug that bit me, and your passion just really floods you through, and it's never paying attention to people who say you can't do it. You're really just attaching yourself to the people and guiding yourself through those angel guides that give you, that courage to move forward in an industry that maybe has not been pathed before you, that you're willing to invest your own time, energy for many of you women who have paved the industry and the way for so many women coming up behind us. And I think that's exactly what Femmes du Vin and the philosophy of more women working together to help pave the way for many of us to have opportunities that maybe we've never seen before, or maybe we don't even know are out there, for us to become entrepreneurs and for us to see opportunities, to have business opportunities, to have mindful opportunities, to have humanitarian opportunities, and to help build the industry into something that's collaborative, exciting, and built for the future for our children. So ladies, thank you so much for spending your evening with us, and your afternoon, Leslie. It's been an amazing seminar. Thank you for the wines provided from Gibson Family Group. And thank you to everyone for watching. And just remember, you can follow Femmes du Vin on Instagram, or go and head right to their website for donations and to see more of our upcoming events. So thank you very much. Lauriane, did you have something to say?
Yes, we have just a last thing to share with you. It is called the Bourgundian, and we are very happy to share these things with you. So please put your hand. La 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 Thank you. Bye bye.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci à vous.
Cheers.
Cheers.